Clara Reynolds gripped the steering wheel as rain-slicked streets blurred past her, while Detective Marcus Hale watched helplessly from the radar van, knowing that every second brought her closer to chaos and possibly disaster. The night was unusually quiet, the streets glistening from the steady drizzle that had fallen all afternoon. Streetlights reflected off the wet pavement, casting long, distorted shadows that seemed to twist with every passing car. On this particular Thursday evening, most residents had retreated into their homes, oblivious to the chain of events that was about to shatter the calm of the suburban neighborhood. Around 8:30 p.m., a sleek black sedan appeared on the horizon, moving with an unusual precision. The car's headlights cut through the rain like twin blades, illuminating the empty streets ahead. At first, its presence seemed innocuous, just another vehicle passing through, but what happened next would shock everyone who witnessed it. The sedan swerved sharply into the first parked car it encountered. The impact was jarring, a loud metallic crunch echoing through the silent streets. Broken glass sparkled in the wet air as the car spun slightly before continuing down the road, leaving the scene without hesitation. Neighbors peered through their curtains, unsure whether they had seen an accident or something more sinister. The driver didn't stop to assess the damage, didn't attempt to apologize or call for help. Instead, she accelerated, weaving with alarming skill between street signs and the occasional tree, leaving chaos in her wake. By the time she reached the next block, her presence had become unmistakable. Another car, this one occupied by a man returning from work, was clipped as she sped past. The victim swerved to avoid a more serious collision, narrowly escaping a full impact. Witnesses described the woman as calm, almost serene, behind the wheel. There was no visible panic, no hesitation, just a controlled and deliberate series of movements that hinted at experience and intent. The randomness of her actions only heightened the fear. People wondered whether she had a specific target, or if anyone could become her next victim. CCTV footage later captured the entire sequence, but even it failed to reveal her motives. The grainy black and white images showed a lone figure in a dark coat, hair plastered to her face by the rain, guiding the car with unnerving precision. Every turn, every sudden swerve, and every collision was recorded, yet nothing explained why she was doing it. Authorities were baffled, trying to determine if this was a case of a fugitive on the run, a psychological break, or something far more calculated. The sedan moved like a phantom through the streets, appearing and disappearing without warning. Residents who had stepped outside to get a better look were left frozen with fear, unsure whether to call for help or flee themselves. By the time the night ended, 2 vehicles had been badly damaged, and the black sedan had vanished without a trace. The neighborhood was left in a state of shock. The first reports to the police were confused, almost hesitant, as if people struggled to articulate the surreal events they had witnessed. News of the incident spread quickly, creating a sense of unease that lingered long after the rain had stopped. No one knew the identity of the driver, and no one could predict if she would strike again, leaving everyone on edge and questioning the safety of their own streets. The following days were tense and filled with unease. Word of the black sedan's rampage had spread like wildfire through local news outlets, social media, and community groups. Residents locked their doors earlier than usual, double-checking parked cars and scanning the streets for any sign of the mysterious driver. The police issued warnings, urging people to stay vigilant, but the woman behind the wheel seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. It wasn't just one neighborhood anymore. Incidents began appearing in nearby towns, streets that had never seen anything like this before. Each report described the same unnerving pattern: a black sedan, sudden collisions, and a driver who appeared calm and deliberate despite the chaos she caused. On one rainy afternoon, a delivery van barely escaped a collision on a busy intersection. Witnesses reported that the sedan had suddenly appeared from a side street, weaving through traffic with uncanny skill. The van swerved just in time, the driver gripping the wheel in terror as the black car passed by, leaving nothing but the faint echo of screeching tires. People who had once felt safe walking to the corner store or driving to work now hesitated, glancing over their shoulders at every shadow that moved on the streets. Anxiety grew, turning ordinary routines into exercises in caution. Parents pulled children closer on sidewalks, and commuters drove slower than usual, scanning every intersection, every parked car, every alleyway for signs of the predator on the move. Police worked tirelessly, analyzing traffic cameras and eyewitness accounts, trying to predict where the woman might strike next. Every detail was scrutinized, from tire marks to witness descriptions of the car's speed and movement. Yet the evidence often led to more questions than answers. The woman seemed to vanish into thin air after each incident, leaving investigators frustrated and confused. For every report of a collision, there were dozens of sightings where she disappeared before police could arrive. Her ability to blend into the city's flow of vehicles and people made her an almost ghostly presence, impossible to anticipate or contain. Local residents began forming informal watch groups, sharing information about suspicious vehicles and sightings of the black sedan. Communities that had never communicated before were now bound together by a common fear. Yet despite these efforts, the woman continued to strike unpredictably, leaving a trail of damaged cars and shattered nerves. Her attacks were no longer confined to isolated streets. They happened at intersections, parking lots, and even near busy shopping centers, places where pedestrians and drivers alike could have been seriously hurt. The randomness created panic and speculation. Some believed she was targeting specific individuals, while others thought she was simply testing her skills, turning the city into her personal arena. By the end of the week, the black sedan had become the subject of national news. Authorities issued a detailed description, noting the make, model, and color, but even this failed to deter her. The woman seemed always one step ahead, appearing where she wasn't expected and disappearing before anyone could respond. Fear had transformed into obsession for some residents, who refused to leave their homes after dark. The city felt trapped under the shadow of an unseen force, a driver whose motives remained a mystery. And while police worked tirelessly to track her down, the woman's actions had already left a permanent mark on the collective psyche of the community, leaving everyone wondering when and where she would strike next. As the days turned into weeks, the investigation into the black sedan intensified. Police officers worked around the clock, piecing together fragments of evidence from surveillance cameras, skid marks, and eyewitness accounts. Every collision was carefully analyzed, revealing a pattern that was both perplexing and alarming. The woman's driving was precise, almost surgical, as if she had spent months, even years, honing her evasive maneuvers. She didn't simply hit cars by accident. She targeted specific points with accuracy that suggested planning. Yet, what she hoped to achieve remained a mystery. Authorities struggled to understand the reasoning behind the attacks, leaving the public to fill in the gaps with speculation and fear. Detectives discovered that the vehicles she struck appeared to have no connection to one another. They belonged to ordinary people, a retired teacher, a young couple, a grocery store clerk. Nothing linked them to one another, and no financial or personal motives emerged. It was as if the woman was choosing targets at random, yet the precision of her hits suggested careful calculation. Forensic experts examined the tracks and impact points, noting how the sedan's movements indicated a driver who was confident and controlled under pressure. Every swerve, every sharp turn, and every sudden acceleration was deliberate. The idea that she might be on the run from something, or someone, began to gain traction among investigators, but no evidence could confirm it. Witnesses reported fleeting glimpses of her face, sometimes through the glare of headlights or the reflection in a car's rearview mirror. Some described her expression as emotionless, almost detached. Others mentioned seeing fear flash in her eyes for a brief moment before it vanished, replaced once again by an eerie calm. The police struggled to find a concrete lead. Calls poured in from citizens hoping to help, but each report seemed to lead only to frustration. Surveillance footage showed glimpses of the sedan slipping through intersections, weaving around stationary vehicles and disappearing into residential streets with uncanny speed. Every time authorities thought they were closing in, she vanished. The city itself began to feel hunted. Streets that had once been familiar and safe now seemed treacherous. Commuters avoided certain routes, and some neighborhoods reported dramatic drops in pedestrian activity. Fear settled into the routine of daily life. Residents shared tips and sightings online, hoping to predict her next move, yet the woman seemed always to stay a step ahead. Even law enforcement, equipped with resources and coordination, found themselves struggling to anticipate her actions. Each day brought new collisions, new reports, and renewed anxiety. Amid the chaos, a disturbing realization emerged. This wasn't mere recklessness. The woman had skills, knowledge, and perhaps a motive that was hidden from everyone. She moved like a phantom, precise and untouchable, leaving authorities grasping at shadows. The deeper investigators dug, the more questions they uncovered. Was she fleeing from someone dangerous? Was there a personal vendetta driving her? Or was she simply testing her limits, turning the city into a stage for her own unknown purposes? Each theory seemed plausible, yet none could be confirmed. The city remained on edge, every driver and pedestrian aware that the black sedan could appear at any moment, striking without warning and leaving a trail of fear and confusion in its wake. Weeks into the investigation, the case took an unexpected turn. Police had been chasing leads, analyzing footage, and questioning witnesses for days with little progress. Then, a single anonymous tip arrived, sent to the precinct in an unmarked envelope. Inside was a grainy photograph, clearly taken from a hidden camera, showing the black sedan parked in an empty lot. Behind the wheel, the woman appeared to be staring into her rearview mirror, her face partially obscured by shadows and rain streaks. What caught investigators' attention was not her vehicle, but the visible fear in her eyes. For the first time, she didn't appear in control. She was watching something or someone behind her, her expression a mixture of anxiety and desperation. The new evidence forced authorities to rethink their assumptions. Perhaps the woman wasn't attacking vehicles out of malice or thrill-seeking. Perhaps she was fleeing. Every collision, every evasive maneuver, every sudden appearance and disappearance might not have been calculated chaos. It could have been a desperate strategy to mislead pursuers. Investigators revisited previous reports and analyzed the sequence of crashes with fresh eyes. The pattern suddenly looked different. The seemingly random attacks may have been a cover, distractions to throw off anyone who might have been following her. Each collision occurred in locations that offered quick escape routes, suggesting she was thinking several steps ahead, not just reacting in the moment. As police examined the new footage, a chilling possibility emerged. The woman might be hiding from someone far more dangerous than they had imagined. The skill with which she maneuvered the sedan, her ability to vanish from camera view, and her apparent awareness of observation all pointed to someone trained to evade pursuit. It became clear that she had spent time preparing for these situations. The randomness of the collisions might have been intended to slow down or confuse anyone chasing her, buying her precious time. The city had been witnessing not just a series of reckless attacks, but a carefully executed plan of survival. Investigators expanded their search, looking for patterns beyond the collisions themselves. They began analyzing phone records, traffic patterns, and the locations of previous incidents. Witnesses were re-interviewed and new questions were asked. Had anyone seen another car following the black sedan? Were there reports of suspicious figures near her path? Slowly, a new narrative began to form, one that suggested she was not the predator, but the prey. Authorities realized that previous theories about revenge or thrill-seeking no longer fit. The fear that had gripped the city might have been amplified by her frantic attempts to escape, turning ordinary streets into scenes of chaos. Residents who had lived in fear for weeks now faced a more complex reality. The woman behind the wheel, once seen as a reckless attacker, might actually be trapped in a dangerous game of pursuit. Every time she rammed a vehicle, it could have been a calculated distraction, a way to survive another few minutes. The collisions, once thought random, were now understood as part of a strategy, a desperate attempt to mislead someone unseen. The city's anxiety deepened, and the police intensified their efforts, realizing that capturing her would not only stop the damage, but also uncover the hidden story of who or what she was running from. The pursuit reached its climax on a foggy night when the black sedan was finally tracked near the outskirts of the city. Radar cameras, set up after days of monitoring traffic patterns, picked up the vehicle moving at high speed along a deserted industrial road. Police units converged, hoping to end the series of collisions that had terrorized multiple neighborhoods. The area was isolated, the mist thick enough to make visibility nearly impossible. Every officer approached with caution, knowing that the woman had repeatedly outmaneuvered law enforcement. What they did not know was that this encounter would challenge their assumptions in a way no one had predicted. As the sedan appeared on the horizon, the police set up barricades and attempted to block its path. But the woman behind the wheel was undeterred. She maneuvered around obstacles with skill that was almost inhuman, ramming through the first barricade with ease and accelerating past the next. Officers attempted to intercept her, but every calculated swerve and sudden turn allowed her to slip further from their grasp. It became clear that she had anticipated this confrontation, planning multiple escape routes in advance. The fog worked in her favor, masking her exact position and making it nearly impossible for authorities to coordinate effectively. Witnesses from nearby industrial complexes reported seeing the sedan vanish into a dense forest at the edge of the city. The trees, thick and unwelcoming, seemed to swallow the vehicle whole. Radar lost track, and even aerial support failed to locate her among the shadows and mist. It was as if the ground itself had opened to conceal her from view. Police combed the area for hours, but there was no sign of the black sedan or its driver. Tire tracks ended abruptly, leaving nothing but the lingering sense of a narrow escape. Residents who had followed the chase from a distance could hardly believe what had happened. The woman had disappeared completely, leaving a trail of unanswered questions and unsettled fears. Days turned into weeks, and the city remained on high alert, unsure if she had truly escaped or was simply hiding, waiting for the right moment to resurface. Authorities pieced together every scrap of evidence they had, reviewing footage, skid marks, and witness accounts, but each clue only deepened the mystery. The black sedan had left no trace, and the woman behind the wheel remained unidentified. People speculated endlessly about her motives, her skills, and the unseen danger she had been fleeing. Rumors spread that she had crossed state lines, that she was hiding in plain sight, or that she had started a new life under a different identity. Though the collisions had ceased, the psychological impact lingered. Residents avoided certain streets, wary of shadows and passing vehicles. Children were kept close to home, and commuters drove with constant vigilance. The mystery of the fleeing woman became a legend, a story whispered in fear and fascination. The authorities, despite their best efforts, had failed to capture her, and the unanswered questions haunted the city. She had not just eluded the law. She had turned the ordinary streets of the suburbs into a stage for her daring escape, leaving behind a story of suspense, skill, and survival that would be remembered long after the black sedan disappeared into the fog.